Hello, and welcome to the Big 12 Mafia podcast. Thanks for joining us today. I've got Chris Forcatch joining me. He's an Arizona State, just bleed yellow and red, and he's decided to jump on here so we can discuss all things media, realignment, and what the hell's going on with the Pac-12 now.
Right.
So,
Well,
Chris, go
maroon and
ahead.
gold. Maroon and gold, so you don't get any hate mail. Maroon and gold, yellow and red.
Maroon. I apologize.
Maroon.
Sorry.
It's all. Hey, it's all good as long as we get it corrected moving forward.
I'm ready.
We're all
Maroon
good there.
sounds good to me.
it's a good time, but yeah, no, it's the wild west right now. I think we're coming up to our year anniversary when Texas and Oklahoma went over to the SEC, and all this talk was about Big 12 teams joining the Pac-12, and the Pac-12 was like, well, we don't like religious schools, and we're looking into expansion, and we're going to do this, and we're going to come back into the bidding market. And then Brett Yormark's like, watch this, and just came to the table, snatched up a great deal for them, and left the Pac-12 sitting there because there's nothing left for them. Right. There's nothing to do.
He did a little hold my beer, didn't he?
He did do a hold my beer.
Yeah, that was I thought that was a pretty interesting way to go about getting work done, is just jump in and do it. Don't screw around. Yeah. Don't talk about it. Just do it.
It was a very elitist type attitude, and I know the term elitist kind of follows the Pac-12 schools around. When you look at it, a little bit. I think it's almost like it should be on their flag, Pac-12 elitists, or Pac-10 elites. But that's what we live in great locations, right? You have, for the time being, USC, UCLA, but I don't even count them in the pack anymore. They've left, but still, it's SoCal, NorCal, Seattle, Oregon, Arizona schools, Utah. I'll leave Colorado for last. And we got all these great locations. We got all these great brands. And on the surface, you would say, yeah, like we should be able to flex. Like we have the West Coast. There's a lot of money here. A lot of people live here.
Right.
And the poor job by Larry Scott and George has just left this whole thing in shambles. Like, how to ruin a relationship in 10 days is basically the book that they're writing here. And it's embarrassing because schools that were just a year ago, like, didn't even know if they were going to even be a Power 5 school, all of a sudden now is in the power seat.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, how is it that San Diego State's driving the bus?
Dude, those guys drive me nuts, man. I remember last year when they first started coming in on Twitter and they're saying, like, we're going to join the Pac-12. We just got this new stadium, and we're moving up in the ranks. And it's just like, why would we add a G5 school to the party, right? I know you're doing well. And my Pac-12 elitist is coming out. But if we're going to grow and get better, why would we add a G5? When you look at the Big 12, you guys are trying to add 4 corners. That's 4 power schools, right?
Right, it is. Yep.
Big 12 saying, hey, we want to get bigger, stronger. We're going to go add power schools. If the Pac-10 now adds San Diego State or Fresno, UNLV, SMU, that's 4 G5 schools. That makes us no different than what the Big 12 has, other than a couple larger branded schools that haven't left yet, but with a worse TV deal.
Right. Exactly. Right. Well, and how does it play down the road when it's not this media negotiation, but the one in 5 or 6 years? Say the Pac stays together. If the Pac stays together, but you're at this lower valuation, do you think for any reason it's going to go up at any time in the future? I don't see that any history would show that.
No, I don't. You very well could. I've heard things where ESPN is kind of like holding on to their money because they want to buy the NBA, right?
Right.
So they need the money for the NBA and they need the TV time slots for the NBA. Right. So that takes up space for any type of programming, and that takes up funds. And ESPN has been doing a bunch of layoffs, and so they're owned by Disney. So you have Disney, ESPN, ABC. I mean, unless they're going to put the Pac-12 on Disney Plus as their. I mean, it's funny to say, but I was thinking about this the other day. Was okay, so you put a tier 1 game on, say, it's Oregon and Washington, or it's Oregon ASU, whatever. You put them on the Pac-12 at night, right? They get that. And then Disney Plus would have a sports section, and they can have all the Pac-12 athletics over there, and they can promote it. They can use Disneyland, whatever, right? But they have the streaming services. They have the capabilities to do everything. And that never, ever got brought up, which was, I thought was kind of funny. But it's just like someone would laugh at them, like, why the hell would you be on Disney Plus? I'm like, well, why the hell would we be on CW? Why would we be on Ion? Why would we be on Apple TV? Like, it's gotten to the point where it's just like, beggars can't be choosers. Beggars are beggars. And we're getting to the point where it's just like, we're privately begging.
Right. Yeah, that's right, actually.
Yeah.
I got a youth that's going to be a partner with me, and it's the Wild Ute is his Twitter handle. And I spoke with him over the weekend, and he really believes that Utah's in a position that they really don't care how the PR has, sort of looks at their school, and how the country is sort of, they feel like any PR is good PR, including bad PR. So as far as the school's concerned, Mark Harlan, their AD, says, yeah, we're going to stay the course. We're ride or die with the Pac-12. And but as I've seen and now been friends with you for a bit, it's obvious that not everybody's unified in that way of thinking. Give us an idea of kind of what ASU and University of Arizona might be thinking.
University of Arizona, they're probably applying for residency. So
I love that. I'm going to do that line. That's great.
Right. They're a basketball school. Their football school is, as them being known as a football school, is laughable. Right. And we're very jack of all trades. We have just above mediocre football team. We have just above mediocre basketball team. We're Phoenix. We're right next to LA. Really, someone, if they were smart, could use the marketing prowess and really say, look at our weather, look at our situation, look at our money, and they really could grow ASU. I was really getting a big laugh about Tucson when it was all first coming out about them and CU going over to the Big 12. I was like, has anybody ever been to Tucson before? Like, seriously, the second
I drove through it one time. That's the only time I didn't.
Yeah, you haven't been back. No. Just like the second you get on there, it's just like War of the Worlds. The streets are all cracked. The foliage is growing into the roads. It's like, it's a mess. It's a mess. But I think it's a mix. I think U of A, from a school standpoint, they want to do what's best for them. And I think the Big 12 is a good move. The problem is ASU is kind of elitist in the sense of we don't really want to move. So we want to turn over every single rock until we find something that's capable and compatible with what we're doing.
Right.
I think the fan base is different. I think the fan base is, you better take care of us. At the end of that, we don't care if we're Pac or if we're Big 12. You better have a TV deal for us. You better be bringing in money for us. We are very, very elite schools, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's a lot of the conversation. But I remember when USC and UCLA said they're going to the Big 10, and then everybody was waiting for Oregon and Washington to go to the Big 10, and they said Big 10 didn't want to take on Orwa or Oregon, Washington because they're afraid to get sued for dismantling the Pac.
Yeah, I think that was a bunch of white noise, by the way.
It could have been, but when you look at it, it goes, and I'll reference the Seattle Supersonics in this case of, hey, we're going to put our best foot forward. We're going to do everything humanly possible to get a TV deal to save the Pac. Right. If we cannot get a deal that is at least what the Big 12 has or better, then we're going to go look at other options. And so it's the same thing that happened with the Sonics was, I will sell you the Sonics, but you have to put good faith effort to find a new location before moving. And they had no intent of ever staying in Seattle. They wanted to go to Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I'm a Seahawks. I'm from Washington. So yes, absolutely. I was a Sonics fan through and through, you bet.
Right. And so that's the same thing. It just looks very similar to this as, all right, well, we negotiated with Fox. Fox said no. ESPN just backed out. They said no. Apple says, well, we only want to do this much. And then the president say no. And then was it Amazon's like, we only want a couple games. So like, well, that doesn't work for us. And the CW is like, well, you're going to cut into our Flash in Justice League time. So I don't know if I want to get into that involved. And then Ion's like, well, we have to remarket everything. And it's just, CW and Ion would be great for the Mountain West. It would not be great for the Pac-12. And really, I mean, the four corners just have to, in my opinion, they just have to go to the Big 12.
It's pragmatism, right? Pragmatism.
It really is, because someone says, well, we need a West Coast conference. I'm like, well, why can't we have West Coast schools in the Big 10 and the Big 12?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
Why
know
can't
the
you have
answer to
that?
that.
Yeah, why can't you have that conference? Or, or some type of merger, but it's like, which markets, are you going to be grabbing for? And what's kind of funny is the ACC is starting to kind of like jump into this whole thing of, well, we're looking to get out of our contract. Well, your contract's pretty hard. And if I'm watching what's going on with the Pac and all the
Yeah.
TV, how are you getting out of your contract? Because even if you get out of your contract, what TV slots are you up? And ACC, with your deal that you have with ESPN, don't you think the Pac-12 might be sitting there waiting for you to break your contract and pull a Brett Yormark? And as soon as you go back to the table to renegotiate your deal, the Pac's going to come in and go, yeah, we'll take that deal.
Well, and this is the way I look at it with the ACC. It's just a matter of time. I don't think it's going to go all the way to 2036 before that thing blows up. I think it's going to be the end of this next Big 10 contract, 30-31, is when I think that finally blows up the ACC. And if you think about it, and again, this is what I was talking to Wild Ute about, is that I really believe we're looking at 3 super conferences, 20 teams to 24 teams. And it's going to be pretty much all the P5 schools now. There might be a few that are currently P5 now that aren't re-upped to be in this new super conference model. But I think 3 conferences is where we're going, and I don't see a reason why that couldn't work. Don't have to chase money. It's not about money. It's about exposure and competition. So that's kind of I kind of think we're going that direction.
Exactly. Was it Porky, the Utah guy on Twitter?
Oh yeah, Utah Pig Bus.
Yeah. He likes to go and talk about it's like the research money. You don't get research money if nobody knows you exist.
Yeah, we're not. I don't even really talk about that anymore because I think that research money is held over people's heads. To be honest with you, I think the Stanford and Cal basically said, you leave us hanging out here to die, we're going to cut you off at the research knees, and you're not going to be part of our. I think that's the only reason this thing already didn't blow up in September, October last year.
Oh, easily. Very well could be because they want their cut too, and they don't have to do anything for their cut. They just get to sit there and let everybody else work. They're not doing anything.
No, they're not.
Well, I can totally see a 3 conference coming. And what's funny is I feel bad for SDSU and Fresno, SMU, was it Tulane? All these schools, man. CSU, they've all built new stadiums. They've all done the. I think, unfortunate, the idea of G5 schools moving up is just over.
Yeah, because I think so. I think this is the end. If you don't make it in right now, I don't think you're getting in.
No, but why would you? The only way a G5 would get in is if one of these P5 schools say no, right? Unless Utah and Colorado go, hey, we want to be the next USC, UCLA, right? Yeah, go for it. Good luck. Best of luck. I'm going to be in the Big 12 making money, having a good time at barbecues and tailgating.
Well, I think they're hoping that if the thing blows up, that the Big 10 will, for lack of a better way to put it, pick them up out of pity. And unfortunately, that's never going to happen. No. That's what I keep saying. They're in the business of being in business. They're not in the business to be a charity. And we're talking billions of dollars. In my opinion, that is beyond a pipe dream, which is where the pragmatism that you mentioned comes in.
Well, I kind of laugh with CU. A lot of CU fans, CU alum, they're all like, we're going to go to the Big 10. We're a Big 10 school. I was like, guys, you have more, since you've joined the Pac-12, you have more one-win seasons than bowl appearances. Right?
Oh, my gosh. Is that true?
That is true. I got friends who went to CU, and it's just like, you got to pull up some dirt. They're like, well, back in '93 when we won our championship, right? I give them a hard time too. I'm like, well, it took you 5 downs to beat Missouri. And you're co-champions with Georgia Tech, who went undefeated. So I don't really see you as champions.
Yeah, which gets Colorado, me a lot of buzz. They did the right thing at the time, though, when they jumped from the Big 12. I mean, they were going money. They were going after money. And
I think someone said they made $300 million with that move to the Pac.
Oh, wow. Right? Really? In 10 years?
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was like $300 million. But you know the thing? Larry Scott was starting the Pac-12 network. And they were front of the line. Oregon was a beast. USC was a beast. And they were in the driver's seat with everything. And Larry Scott just got cocky and couldn't make a deal with DirecTV. and all of a sudden you lost, what, 2/3 of your market
Yes.
on watching it, and you can see it.
Yeah. Well,
And then
so how do you? So let's look at that
Go.
for a second. So let's just count off the two California. They're gone,
They're gone
and
out.
now we're in sitting. We'll say June 25th because SDSU has
Yep.
to move before the end of June, or they have to pay like something like $15 million to get out of the Mountain West GOR. So
Yep.
if it doesn't happen by June 30th, I don't think it's going to happen.
Well,
Where
you
are
could see
we
some
at?
shady stuff.
Yeah, where are we at on June 25th?
I think June 25th, I think you might see some desperate schools. I think you might see some desperate situations where on a Monday, SDSU and say UNLV join, because UNLV, they've been, PAC offices. That's where George Kliakoff's from.
Right.
You see those two schools go and say, hey, we're going to really lock down the Southwest over here. And then you'll see some praise on TV. And then late Friday, you'll see Four Corners, Big 12.
I personally believe if it goes that long, that there's going to be a lot of people thinking chairs are going to be available, but the music's going to stop, and there aren't. There are going to be people that are left out, and they're going to have to wait for the next media deal or for another carrier to come in. And Amazon, Brett Yormark's the smartest guy in the room right now, and
for sure.
I could totally see him saying, okay, this is what's left after that June 30th. I'm going to go to, and he probably already has done this. I'm going to go to Apple or Amazon. I'm going to say, hey, I've got four more schools. If we do this, will you not only give us the funding, but will you give us room on your schedule? And I think that's the next natural progression is Brett Yormark brings Amazon or Apple back to the table, and now all of a sudden we're at that would be 3 carriers for the Big 12, and now you're cooking with gas, and now you're really looking. Now no longer are you 31.7 million. Now you're closer to 40 or 45. That's just that's my opinion. It's not based on anything.
No, but if you take that, he's talking about doing like separate basketball. Right. So we can get some basketball money. So maybe right now for football, we can't afford Four Corners, but we can with basketball, right? So you go Arizona State, CU, Utah. You bring them in. We're going to use that. All right, we're going to leverage you a little bit for more hoops, but as we grow, we'll get you more football exposure, right? There's so many ways they can do this, but I really just feel they're just going to go to the point and drag this out as long as possible to say, hey, we overturned every single rock. We've done everything that you asked us to do.
Yeah,
we're not finding anything. We got to move to the Big 12. This is the way college football is going. And you have the transfer portal. You have NIL.
Right.
It's just like these. If I'm a recruiter and I'm going into your kid's house and your kid's like, I want to go to Oregon State or TCU. And I'm like, well, what's your end goal? Well, I want to play in the NFL. All right. Well, how much exposure are you going to get in the Pac? How much exposure are you going to get in the Big 12?
Right.
Granted, you may have to work a little bit harder, but guess what? We have a transfer portal. And if you show off in practice, you take your film, even though CU doesn't give their film, and you can go somewhere else. And
I got that joke. That's good.
Yeah.
No game film for you.
Yeah. And I always laugh at the Buff Nation where they're like, we got Prime and Big 12 wants that. How long is he going to coach? No, the Big 12 wants brands. If CU is a big brand, they will take CU. If ASU is a big brand, they will take ASU. That's the only leverage they have is their brand name. And if they don't go now, what's going to happen in 5 years? Will those brands still exist?
Right.
And I don't know.
They're much diminished, though. If they're not in, they're diminished brands.
Okay, so you can hypothetically say, all right, so if they diminish, now they're at the same level as SDSU, CSU,
right,
Air Force, whatever. Okay, now you got a whole bunch of G5s and lower P5s to choose from. And now you can prop any of those up, or why bother, right?
Yeah.
You get your West Coast schools?
I think it depends what the number is that they want to settle
Yeah.
on. If it's 20 or 24, whatever that final number is really going to dictate who's still going to have a chair and music to play with, right?
Right. And when they make that number, they don't make that with the additions of SDSU and another school. That's only with the 10 schools.
Yes.
So
of course, that's right. Yeah.
Right. So they only divide that up. So when SDSU is saying like we're going to be in the Pac-12 really soon, with what money? right? Because you have to divide all that up, and then you have
You'd have
5
to bring
million.
in another carrier. That's the only
You have
way.
to bring
is you have
another
to bring in
carrier,
another carrier in. Yeah.
or you work something out with Comcast because Comcast is owed 5 million each, right, from the 10, right?
That's
So
a
then
whole different
SDSU,
game.
right? So SDSU and whatever school has to pay part of that, right? Because I would negotiate that. You want to be in here, you need to pay part of this Comcast thing.
Right.
And then you look at if they're 100% streaming and they have to pay for their own TV production, I think that it was like another 7 million. So you're looking at another 10 to 12 million dollars off of that 24 mark. You're making 12 million dollars, and then you go to the Big 12 and you're making 30 to 50 depending on how good the conference does.
Well, you're going to get 45 to 50 with everything else. Basketball adds another about 15 or so.
Absolutely.
Plus, there's this Rucker Park thing. There's now Mexico. I mean, he's out there on the corner. Your mark is, and he's shaking a can and saying, "Hey, we got more," you know. And
right.
in 5 years, then they'll do the basketball split, and it's a whole different world.
It's a whole different world, and I think Utah needs to be pushing hard as they can to get the Big 12 and have just a bloody rivalry with BYU.
And I want UA and ASU.
Yeah, ASU. You got to have them. And ESPN says that rivalries matter.
Well, Bob Thompson, that's his quote. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
rivalries matter. You have to have those rivalries, and if you're not going to do it, you know what's the point? I always laugh when they said, "I'm like, well, we got this. We get one school out of this region, you know." And I was always having those battles on social media where it's like, "Well, we want Tucson. Tucson's not in Phoenix.
Yeah, no.
It's just not. It's
totally
almost 2 hours away.
Yeah.
It's totally different culture. The money's not there. And so it's just like, if you get Tucson, you're not getting the Phoenix market. There's only one radio show host that ever talks about U of A, and it's only during basketball season. And that's because his kid went to U of A.
You're talking about Jason Shear? You're talking about Jason
No, John Gambadora. Gambo.
Oh, I don't know who that is. I like Jason
you like
Shear,
him.
by the way.
Yeah, Shear's cool. If you like pro sports, Touch of College, Gambo on 98.7 Arizona Sports.
Yeah,
dude, he's a great follow.
Shoot me his contact. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll send it over. He's a cool guy. But yeah, he's a lot of energy. He's a New Yorker, and just be careful if you watch any NBA or NFL drafts. He usually gets the picks before they come in. So if you don't want to get spoiled, don't listen to him during those times.
Man, I'm a Seahawks fan. I want to know as early and as quick as possible.
Right. Well, I'm a Bronco fan, so I live through. I know. Yes.
Hey,
that Super Bowl was awful.
So let me interrupt you here first. Yeah, wasn't it though?
Yeah.
We do have, I don't know, 2 or 3 people watching us. Please leave a comment to give us something you want to talk about right now, and we'll take up your questions. I'm sitting here now with Chris, 24 Catch, and he's representing ASU, and we're talking realignment and new media deals. Okay, so Jim Williams, I believe it was Sunday, maybe late Saturday, made the announcement, or at least he was reporting that he was hearing CBS Sports, and I'm talking the eyeball CBS, not CBS Sports, whatever, was talking about bringing in and doing one game a week. It would be that 4:30 Pacific window. What do you think about that?
I think from a TV standpoint, it's a great idea. Diversify, split everything up. For the conference, I think that's awful, right? Because when you look at SEC, Big 12, and Big 10, they're all secured. They all got TV spots. As a fan, as an alum of the schools in those conferences, I can wake up, get my chores knocked out, and I can go watch the games that I want to watch. Versus if I'm on
for 12 hours. For
12 hours, man. I got YouTube TV. I can turn on the ACC network, the Big 10 network, whatever, Big 12 network. I can turn them all on. I don't have to pay extra for them. It's just rock and roll. We're good to go.
Right.
The Pac, if I have to go, I'd have to have notifications set up on my phone to let me know at what point my game's coming on.
Right.
Right. And it's such a pain. And it's just not worth it. It's not worth getting that deal. That's why it's like, you just go to the Big 12. Matt Ishbia, he's in the news for last night for holding onto a basketball.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Right. Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, which is stupid because if you're a player, you're not allowed in the seats for the stands. You're just not. So whatever happens there, that's your fault, Joker. I'm sorry, dude. Take accountability. But what Ishbia did is that Valley TV is awful, right?
So is that the local carrier?
They were carrying the local games, but they're a national brand.
Oh,
And
I've never heard of them, so that's why.
yeah, they're small, dude. I think they're going bankrupt, but I couldn't get them on YouTube TV. I could get them on like cable, but I couldn't get them on YouTube TV. So I'm like, YouTube TV will record my game after it's over, but by then I already know what the score is. There's no real point to it.
Work.
So Ishbia is like, there's like 2 or 3 million fans that aren't able to watch the Suns. So he just went to the local TV networks. Now it's free. Next year it'll be free.
So if what Jim Williams is saying is that this would be regular CBS, this one game would be regular CBS after the second to last SEC game. Oh no, not SEC, because they're going to be in they're ESPN. Who is it following? Whatever would follow. I'm not even sure what the first game is at CBS Sports, CBS. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
It's 4:30 Pacific. That's all I know.
Yeah, I mean, so 4:30 Pacific. So you're 5:30 Mountain, 6:30 Central, 7:30 East Coast. That's not. Yeah, it's not bad, but that's one game, right? Out of how many?
It is only, at least according to Jim, he was hearing one game. Yeah.
And who's it going to be? It's going to be Washington or Oregon, or it's going to be Dion
or Colorado because of Dion, and then Dion leaves, and now it's back to Utah, Washington, Oregon.
So it'll be,
and then usually there's a fourth team. Usually there's a fourth team that's good. I would say it's Arizona State.
Yep.
I would, every once in a while.
But it'll be like, remember back in the 90s? It was like the Cowboys were always on Fox. And so it was Cowboys versus, it was every weekend it was the Cowboys, but it was against somebody. So it's going to be like Washington versus or Oregon versus, and I think that'll be whatever it is down the road. It just doesn't work out for all the schools because recruiting is so important. The portal is so important. And when you're locked into that TV, see now if I'm a Pac-12 recruiter, I can go in and say, hey, we're negotiating this TV deal. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be fantastic. Look at all the beautiful weather. Look at all the locations we're going to go to. Then we're locking our TV network and A, B, and C is going to happen, right? Dude, if I had to go in and recruit these kids saying, hey, one time a week, there's probably one time a year, maybe 2 times a year, you're going to be on TV. That's it.
That's pretty tough.
That's going to be a tough one to sell.
That is pretty tough.
So you might get some 3-star recruits, right, that come into your school and you build them up. Now they're like really talented players and they hit the portal and they leave your school. Like, a Boise State. Boise State's probably going to see that. We're going to go play at BSU for a season, build up our cred, and then we're going to go to Florida State. Right. So I just don't see how a lot of these schools are going to be successful without a TV.
Well,
without being on TV.
You've already said it. If the contract that Pac-12 now signs and it's minimal exposure, you guys buy 5 or 6 years. In that 5 or 6 years, what in the calculus is going to change that's going to make the Pac-12 the next contract? What can we see right now in the news and out in the world that would say you guys would be in an even stronger position? I personally can't picture it.
I don't think you can. I think the only thing that Pac-12, if you're going to survive, you don't add any schools, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think you can. I agree.
You can't. You got to keep that money. So you go Pac-10, and then you try to work something out where it's like, look, it's just the 10 of us. Let's do it for 3 years. Give us a 3-year deal, or until after you pay for the NBA. And then when you recoup the money, let's come back to the table, right? It has to be short-term and then renegotiate, short-term, renegotiate, and then go.
Could you imagine what you guys' life would be like? It's like every year you're waiting for the next media deal. I don't know. That doesn't seem tenable to me. This is already burning out housewives and small children. Now, in 3 years, now you're going to be burning out presidents and chancellors and nobody. I like realignment. You like realignment because it's interesting, but I don't think I'm not in it this round, but could you imagine living like this on pins and needles for the next 3, 6, 8 years? I can't picture that. So why not move now? Why not move now is my question.
Well, it's not that I'm just a fan. I'm an alum.
Oh, sure. Yeah, of course.
I'm an alum. I'm watching this thing just fizzle, like just dissolve in front of me, and they're not doing anything to do it. The president's like, yeah, you guys make millions of dollars. You don't care. Your legacy's set. But now, if they don't get to the Big 12 or if they don't recover the Pac, like their legacy's done. But they don't care. They're already taken care of. But if the only way, like really the pack survives, is either those short-term deals, or George goes to the Big 12 and goes to some of those schools and says, "Hey, let's get you on the West Coast." I went to ESPN. ESPN said, "If I can take you and pull you over, like go to BYU, let's match you up with Utah, and let's go to Kansas. Let's bring you over. TCU, they don't treat you right. Come on over, and maybe have Stanford and Cal get some money, get that research money. Just show them, like, yeah, okay, there's your TV media deal, right? We'll have the same TV media deal as the Big 12, but now we're going to add this research money on top of it, and we're going to kill the Big 12, right?" It'll never happen.
No,
but that's the only way it could. Yeah. It's the only way it would happen. It's the only way it can work is if they got other Power 5 schools. Because, hey, we added the San Diego State Aztecs. Nobody cares. Like, if we still had USC and UCLA, right? Then it's just like, all right, not only do we have the LA market, we got the San Diego market. Oh, we got UNLV. That's strong, right? Could you imagine the games going on there? But it's just like, now we don't have LA. And it's just like San Diego's running up like, we're just as good. I'm like, well, if you're just as good, the Chargers would have stayed. Like, they wouldn't have left.
Are you of the mind that, and I know you said you had a half hour. Do you want to go more, or you got to go?
Yeah, we'll go another. Yeah, we keep going.
So are you an alumni that holds Larry Scott or Kliavkov? And before you answer, I'll tell you who I think's most at fault. I don't think it's Larry Scott, because Larry Scott was just doing what the chancellors and presidents was doing them, right?
Yep.
He was the one out there saying we're as good as the Big 10 and the Ivy League. So this is my opinion. I say he set Larry Scott aside, and I would wholly blame George Kliavkov, because at the end of the day, everybody knew we were going into a recession last fall. For some reason, he seemed to make a calculation that said, you know what? We're good. Media dollars never go away. So I'm going to make a tactical decision. I'm going to turn down what ESPN and Fox offer me first, which is exactly what the Big 12 took. And I'm going to go to what is a open market, not, I guess, seeing the writing on the wall that the money wasn't going to be there. And that to me was a tactical error that he made that he needs to be held accountable to.
Oh, absolutely. He came in there very cocky, right? So if you look at the whole situation, Larry Scott's got to take some accountability, because he tarnished the brand.
Yeah, he put you guys in a bad spot.
But he didn't wreck it, right?
Yeah.
George comes in, he gets the offer, he says that's not good enough. You're right, George. That wasn't good enough. We absolutely agree with you. But here's the problem. It's like, I want to go buy a BMW, right?
Right.
So I go to the car dealership and I say, I want a BMW, but it has to have all these accessories with it. And they go, we don't have those types.
For no additional money.
It's not for no additional money, but we don't sell that car here. And then you're like, fine, I'm going to go to a different car lot. So you leave that car lot, and then when you come back, all the cars are gone.
Yeah.
And that's what happened here.
That's true.
Look, ESPN can go give the Pac-12 $100 million a school. All right. They could go, right, here's your check. But you want to know what? There's no TV time.
Right.
All those time slots have been filled. Fox, all those time slots are filled. You need a whole new sports network that people are aware of, that people can have access to go watch these games. So when everybody's like, well, I want my 30 million or I want my 40 million, that's cool. On what? Okay, we're going to go on the CW. CW, what is your plan to get your brand in front of everybody? That's fine. I don't care if it's CW, DW, BW. I don't care. But how are you going to put this easy access to everybody? Because, okay, like I know in Colorado when I lived there, it was on Channel 2, CW2. So Channel 2, you could, if you had football on there, all right. So Pac-12's on Channel 2. Channel 4, I believe, was CBS. So you can watch your CBS games there. Then 7 was ABC, and then 9 was NBC, right? So it's all in a row, right? It's all boom, 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 boom. You can just flash in channel surf. That would work. How much money are you going to give? How are you going to promote it? It has to be promoted.
Right.
And what about streaming? Last night, my wife's like, hey, I need to go to the store. Come with me. All right. I'm not telling her no. So we go to the store, but it's during the Suns game. I love the Suns. My two favorite basketball teams are Suns and Nuggets. So I'm just like, I got to watch this game. I'm watching it on my phone, walking through Albertsons. Right. So Are you going to be able to, can I stream the CW and watch my Pac games? Right? There's just so many things that have to go there. And I just don't think all that stuff's going to come to fruition. And then you have some presidents in the Pac schools, I don't want to stream, or it has to be this percentage of streaming, or I just want to be linear, or I want to be the progressive school that does 100% streaming. Okay, that's cool. Be 100% streaming. It's got to be cheap. This Apple thing is
not only does it have to be cheap, it has to be easy to access. It can't take 20 minutes to switch between inputs like Roku and Stream Bar and all these other things. I mean, we're just not there yet. And until we have one size catch all in one app, I don't know how this gets bigger.
Wait, what did you say? Arizona and state rivalry is toxic. Oh yeah.
That's a great question, Bullseye. Thank you.
That is that really does hit the mark. It's pretty toxic. I used to laugh when I lived in Colorado and I was shopping at a grocery store, and I mean I dress a lot like this, and I'm walking around the store and I see these guys, they're wearing U of A stuff. And I'm like, yo, dude, I moved to Colorado to get away from you. You need to leave.
Are you Sharks and Jets? Are you popping down right that second?
Dude, it'll get heated, man. And then I ran in that same store, a completely separate family, also wearing U of A stuff. I'm like, dude, you guys are ridiculous, man. You need to go away. Or we're at a ASU U of A football game. I think it's just before COVID. And they painted this beautiful state of Arizona shape and then put Sparky's head in the middle. And the U of A football players are going up, taking their cleats and scratching it and just destroying it before the game even started. Wow. One of my kids made a poster because, when you go to the game, they hand out the posters kids can draw on it. Right. And this lady, she had to be in her 30s, man, maybe early 40s. She's stomping on it, right?
Oh, really?
Well, I'm not going to. Yeah, so I'm like, I'm not going to get kicked out of the game. But I told my kids, man, feel free to say whatever you want. Get at it. And yeah, it's toxic. People from Phoenix don't like Tucson. People from Tucson don't like Phoenix. I love it. It's one of the greatest rivalries. Some webpage I have to look it up was statistically the number one rivalry in college sports. Yeah, it's right there. And watching all the stuff between BYU and Utah,
right?
It's like, man, dude, if the four of us were all in the same conference,
I know
the bloodbath. And that was the other thing about before CU and Utah joined the Pac. The Pac-10 was the only conference with two schools in every state.
I know, and I loved it. Growing up, it was fantastic being in Washington State. I loved Wazoo. The Apple Cup was appointment viewing, even when I was a kid. Yeah.
Apple Cup, Civil War, Territorial Cup. The Territorial Cup is the oldest cup in football.
It is.
It's the oldest one. It's just but yeah, it's toxic and it's fun. That's what makes it fun.
Well, the Holy War, I'm not sure if that's what Bullseye's thinking when he's talking BYU, but he knows. I know Bullseye's been on enough of my shows to recognize that Holy War game is now. I don't know about stats. I just know because it involves politics and religion, it has to be top 5 because it not only touches families, it rips apart families, friends, neighbors. Yep. And I would not put it greater than ASU and UA, but I think they're on par.
Oh yeah, I think they are. I think there's a lot of things that get undervalued because of TV.
Right. Of course. Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure Auburn, Alabama, I know all them down south. They love that rivalry. I don't care.
Rivalry kids. Rivalry down south. That's good.
Right, I'm just ASU U of A, man. Just that's what I live for. Basketball, baseball. Oh my God, there's a guy on Twitter. He had a countdown of how many days have passed since U of A last beat ASU, and it went over 2,000.
Yeah,
went over 2,000 days, and we put up a billboard. We beat ASU 70-7. 70-7, and then we put up a billboard on I-10 when you're coming up from Tucson entering Phoenix.
Right,
that showed 70-7.
Yeah.
We don't like them, they don't like us, and we respect each other for that.
So and I love that it's mutual respect. At the same time, it's hate, and I agree that both things are okay, and I have no problem saying that out loud. So if you're in our comments this afternoon, please drop us a line, and either Chris or I'll try to answer the question.
Absolutely.
Specifically, if you have anything for UA. ASU, the Pac12, or realignment. That's what we're talking about today. Bullseye, you don't have another question for us? I'm opening the query box up. Really quick, while we're waiting on that, I want to reiterate, I really appreciate everybody joining the Big 12 Mafia podcast. On the reader line below, you'll see all the context that we have for this particular show. Please drop a suggestion, leave a comment, make sure you subscribe, go to my Twitter channels, which are very active, and just continue to follow us. Make sure you hit the bell so that you're reminded when we're on, and we'll be having Chris on again. Let's go to Bullseye again. You want to read that again? Let's go there.
I think the Utah Trolls and Big 12 chat are opening people's eyes just how big of a rivalry it is. It is. I didn't, you know what? Honestly, I didn't know how big of a rivalry it was until I saw it, and it's just like it was fun. When Utah joined the Pac-12, I was reading a bunch of articles and seeing a lot of Utah was specifically targeting us as a rivalry. Like they were going out of their way to say that Utah ASU is a rivalry, and it was starting to build up a little bit like that. CU back in the day with Coach Mack in the late 80s, they did the same thing with Nebraska. CU didn't really have a rivalry, still kind of don't, but they went after Nebraska.
Okay.
And with the same kind of like, you know what? We just moved to this conference. You're our rival, right? And I loved it. And I went to an ASU Utah game. It was a tight battle. N'Keal Harry still played for the Sun Devils, and N'Keal Harry basically single-handedly led ASU to a victory. And the venom that was coming from the Utah fans was fantastic. And we're chirping back and forth. But here's the thing. This is different between like my rivalry with U of A and Utah was at the end of the day, almost every Utah fan I came in contact walking out of the stadium shook my hand and said good game. Right? It was we're going to hate each other from kickoff to the last buzzer, and then at the end of the day, shake hands. Same with basketball. I went to ASU U of A, University of Utah basketball game. Same deal. Man, we get at it, and then after it was just done.
I'm a big supporter of Utah. I'm not a fan, and I'm definitely a BYU through and through. But I respect Kyle Whittingham, their coach, graduated from BYU, and they are married. They are true blood rivals in the state of Utah and then the rest of the country. So I respect their program. I respect the education you get at the school, which is very, very good. And I'm not praying for the Pac-12 to die. I'm praying that the Big 12 picks up Utah and Arizona schools and Colorado. I really would love that.
That's probably what's going to happen. I could really see the Four Corners just going over to the Big 12, and then you have a new Pac-12 of G5s. And maybe it's just another tier up, so that way, if there is an opportunity for G5s to get into a power conference, they kind of form it in the new Pac. And that gives, and that'll give Oregon State and Washington State an opportunity to be leaders.
Right. And I've said that before in the past. I agree with you 100%. Yeah, they could be the big dogs in the Mountain West.
Absolutely. Let's see, ASU, U of A, UU, and it's CU. They'll get pissed off at you. It's University of Colorado, but
maybe he did that on purpose.
Right. Can't make the Pac-12. How do they expect to make $31 million in the Big 12? The last report I've heard, it was a while ago, was that ESPN said if you can get 2 to 4 power schools, we'll up the money. We will not up the money for additional G5 schools.
Right.
That's why.
They said it was. What is that called? I can't remember the word. And the minute I turn off our show, I'm going to remember it. But basically, they'll give ESPN 66%.
Escalator.
Escalator clause. And Fox is 34% of the remaining part of that contract for media dollars. But I've heard that Fox has said if you get that 2 to 4, we'll match the 66 to get everybody up to the 31.7.
Exactly.
And this goes to a larger conversation. We don't have enough time for it today, but that is in my opinion, and I said this back in August, and I was made fun of, but I kept those receipts, and that is why in the world would ESPN and Fox want to have a fifth conference when they can cover those games and partnerships in a fourth conference and just roll all the games into it? I don't understand why you want to go for have an extra contract, an extra hassle when you could be doing it all in smaller numbers. Same coverage. Nobody's going away with coverage, but you're going to have just more schools in a conference.
Well, so I used to sell print, and so I used to sell large format print, promotional merchandising, and we'll say custom boxes, right? So if I came to you as a company, I'm not only selling you boxes, and then you have another company that sells graphics, and you have another company that sells promotional printing, or just large format printing. I could come to you like, hey, how about you just deal with me, and I'll just give you all three. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So why do we need a Pac? Why do we need a Pac-10? Why do we need a Pac-12? Why do we need an ACC? Right?
Tradition is the only reason. Tradition is the only thing holding out there.
Well, traditions, you can still have those traditions.
Yeah.
You just get rid of the conferences. And now I don't have to pay a Pac. I don't need to pay an ACC. I can keep the same schools and just spread them out.
I agree. I agree with you, Chris. 100%.
And I don't think the conferences have as much pull as they're trying to say. I think the TV, Fox and ESPN go to you and say, hey, this is how we want to divide this up.
I think that's happened already, and it's going to continue to happen more and more for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a slow go, so nobody gets sued.
So, Daniel, if that is actually the case, so he's talking about this, whether the why the number would go up to the 31 million and why the match would be there. So I find that extremely important.
I think it's because the Big 12 has to be as competitive as the SEC and Big. Otherwise, it's not worth it.
Don't talk to me about that. That's just
right.
That's just
because if you look at
ridiculous assertion.
Well, you look at the brands and not so much the quality. You look at how much love Alabama, Auburn gets, and you look how much love like Michigan, Michigan State, and all those schools, right?
Right.
So those pull in TV viewers, right?
Of course.
Like those schools, like was it Florida got their ass whipped by Oregon State?
Yes, they did.
Right. So the quality, it's not really so much the quality; it's just so much the perception of how much better this school is than the other school.
Well, all the viewers, it's like 74% of the viewers are on the other side of the Mississippi. 74. That means Colorado. That means the west side of Texas. A lot of New Mexico. All these only has basically a quarter of all the population in the United States. Everybody else is in bed by the time After Dark kicks off. Which, by the way, can I just tell you this? The dumbest marketing thing, in my opinion, is After Dark, and the reason is because it's after dark, but that means nobody's watching you. So that's one of the reasons the Pac-12 is struggling right now.
Except for one Uber driver in Shreveport. I flew to Shreveport.
That's right. And he's watching and driving. So
he's watching and driving. Well, what's funny, I had a meeting in Shreveport. So I flew in. I'm right at the Uber driver. He's like, "Where are you from?" I'm like, "I'm from Arizona." And he's like, "Oh, okay." So we started talking about sports and stuff. And he's like, "I love ASU." And I'm like, "You watch ASU?" And he's just like, "Yeah, dude. I get home 1 o'clock in the morning, man. It's the only game that's on.
After Dark, baby.
After Dark. After Dark." But no, perception's important, I think, with a lot of these TV, because they're just looking to make money. It doesn't matter.
Of course, yeah.
And I think what they're going to do is you have to have the perception in the Big 12, the Big 10, and the SEC that you're all equals, right?
Yes, of course.
Because ESPN's like, how do I sell TCU versus Oklahoma State when it doesn't get the same love as Wisconsin versus Michigan? Right. So it's the perception, even though the quality of schools they're all the same.
Of course.
Talent gets better every year.
Yep.
Especially in basketball. So it's just that perception that you just kind of have to get over, and that's the difficult spot, and that's the negotiation. So I guess one positive for George is he's dragging this out as long as possible to get a better. Hopefully, he's working towards a better deal, and he's got something coming. But when you hear from all these other TV networks, dude, we just don't have spots to play your games.
Right.
It's not money anymore. It's how are you going to play your game? Well, it's really easy to play those games if you're in the Big 12, if you're in the Big 10. It's really easy because those slots are available, and then you can put the other games on those networks. And that's the other complicated part of this thing is the Big 10, Big 12, ACC, all five Power Fives, even the Mountain West, they all have their own TV, right?
Right, of course.
So whoever takes on the Pac has to put them on linear TV, has to stream them, and then has to have a Pac network. So that's a lot.
Does it have to have a Pac network?
If you're a Power 5 school competing with other Power 5 schools, I think you have to.
Because the Big 12 doesn't.
Sure.
Yeah, they use ESPN Plus as their Big 12 network.
But they have one. Like if you want to watch them.
It's just ESPN Plus, if that's what you mean.
I thought I saw one on my YouTube TV.
No, it's co-branded.
Oh,
it's
okay,
not
gotcha.
The same as the Longhorn Network. It's not the same as the SEC Network or ACC Now, or even the Pac-12. Because they knew, even Bob Bowlesby, who a lot of people trash on because he was, horse and buggy Bowlesby. At least he didn't wreck the Big 12. He did the best he could to keep it together. And I think he saw that there weren't enough eyeballs, especially without Texas and Oklahoma, to have your own channel. So why invest in the infrastructure? Right now, that's hanging around the Pac-12's neck. Whoever takes them on, either they're going to sell it outright to, some mom and pop shop, or they're going to lease it back or sell it back to whoever their primary partner is now.
Well, if you look at I think we all agree that George screwed up. George Kliakoff screwed up in the beginning. But and you look at Brett Yormark, it's like every few weeks, man, he's just something new. And then we all look at George here in the Pac going, you're not doing anything. You're not at Rutgers. You don't have draft parties.
No.
You don't have specific workouts for the schools in your conference. You don't have anything going on.
Right.
It just sounds like you got a really fat wallet and you're having a good time till you get fired.
Daniel, let's read this. I was thinking that it benefits ESPN more to have those schools competing in the Eastern and Central time zones where the density of hardcore fans exists. That's absolutely true. But there's no reason to have its own division. It doesn't have to have the Pac-12 conference. Those schools can just be folded into other conferences, like Oregon and Washington take less money to go to the Big, and the rest of the ones that are willing to actually play ball go to the Big 12.
But why did the Pac-12 have such low fan support? They're not on TV.
Well, part of it is because you guys live, not you guys specifically, you're not far from the ocean though. And all these places have other things to do than whereas, and let's just say it out and out, I'm a Big 12 believer. I'm following them with every breath I take and every move I make. But at the end of the day, we have the mountains where I live. But other than that, anything in the Midwest, what are these people doing except for college and pro sports? That's the reason the numbers are up so high. It's because they have nothing else to do.
Yep. No, it really is. I mean, even with the pro sports here in Phoenix, I mean, the Cardinals sell out, but they didn't start selling out until they got the new stadium.
Right.
A lot of that was Sun Devil. You're just out in the sun all the time. So at least it's kind of a break from the heat to get in there. But if they're not winning, nobody's showing up.
Right.
I mean, even like the Suns for a while were empty. Moving from Colorado to here, I didn't know what a blackout was. Bronco games were always sold out, and they were always on TV. And I was literally in my apartment going, I can't watch a Cardinals game before the next game comes on, because if you don't have like a certain percentage of people in the stadium, they didn't put it on TV.
That's right, blackouts. Yep.
You get the blackout. So I didn't know what any of that stuff was, but that's just how it is, man. It's just, if they're not winning, we're going to go spend our money elsewhere. And that's just, it's just the name of the game. And, you look at USC, UCLA, we all laugh because nobody's in those stadiums. Well, they got the beach, they got the mountains, they got Disneyland, they got Universal Studios. Like, let's see, we go to Disneyland, which is kind of faux pas now, or we can go to a college football game, and maybe UCLA will pull out a win.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Well, you can have supporters and your team's no good. Nobody's going to watch. So that's why, frankly, Oregon State and Washington State, besides their locations, but pretty much they're landlocked. They're not next to the ocean. Corvallis is a bit away, but obviously Pullman, you're looking at 5 hours, 5.5 hours from the ocean.
But even though Oregon has the Nike money. They're the same distance from the ocean.
I was talking about Oregon State.
Well,
Oregon
no, I know.
has,
So,
the difference between Oregon State and Oregon is Nike. It's Phil Knight.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like they're beautiful locations.
Right.
You're out there in Pullman. And then Washington State, I mean, if Gonzaga can pull basketball talent, why can't Washington State?
Washington State's had them and Oregon State, they put a team together every decade.
Yeah.
The word you were looking for, Daniel, sorry to cut you off, Chris. I just wanted to make sure we got this out. The number or word you were talking about is the pro rata. That's that number that says it's worth $18 million in the Pac-12. It's worth $31 million in the Big 12. That's the difference.
Yep.
Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good. No, yeah, that's the thing is in the Pac is they're all beautiful locations. But Washington State, you have all the mountains right there. I think it's the Moscow Mountains are there. You're just south of Spokane, where Gonzaga plays. And Gonzaga every year has legitimate basketball teams. But, ASU can have you have the same discussion with ASU. Why is someone going to Tucson over Tempe in the Phoenix area? And Tucson can rip out these great basketball teams, and ASU is just barely getting into the tournament. I mean,
I guess I could call that. Can you explain that to me?
We probably have to call the FBI. They did some research on that.
I would like to know why University of Arizona can get and win basketball.
Dude, I don't even know, dude. I was in Tucson last month, and inside the campus is beautiful. It's a really nice campus. The couple of the shops that are around the surrounding street of the campus are decent, and then you get outside of that, man. It's a mess. When you get closer
how are they recruiting? I just don't understand.
I would love to know what they're doing down there.
Yeah,
it's probably not legal.
That's a conversation for a different day. We'll have to do is there gambling?
For sure.
Is there illegal tampering in college sports?
Hey, but just keep in mind, Coach Kenny Dillingham, our new head coach at ASU, has done a phenomenal job in the portal while still dealing with the COVID investigation that happened 2 years ago.
You're talking about for basketball or football?
Football.
Oh.
Remember, during COVID, there was a time you weren't allowed to have recruits on campus.
Herm Edwards, right?
Herm Edwards. Yeah. And Herm Edwards rented a house out in Paradise Valley, beautiful house up in the mountain, and he was bringing recruits there, and he wasn't supposed to. And we're getting investigated for that. Well, Air Force did the same thing. Air Force is bringing on recruits during COVID blackout, and they got a slap on the wrist. And that was probably 6-7 months ago. The Air Force got their ruling.
I didn't know that. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah. And so now we're still waiting to get an answer. And so we're dealing with that scandal. And it's just they always try to make fun of us for that scandal. But y'all were investigated by the FBI. It's a little different. We had coughs and sneezes, and you're the FBI listening onto your phones.
So, Daniel, again, great comment, Daniel. You're right. The SEC and the Big 10, the reason they're as popular as they are is because those fan bases that's all they do. That's all they do is fan base. And the Pac-12 is I said this to a buddy, what was it, last week? I said the Pac-12 is more like a vacation home. And they don't feel an urge to go and fill the Rose Bowl. They don't feel an urge to go to Corvallis and watch a game 6 or 7 times a year. So what's going to change in that? I don't think anything is ever going to change.
No.
What's going to change is the marketing, and it's going to have to be driven by the conference. And the Pac-12 hasn't had hasn't had a good commissioner for 15 years.
No, and they're suffering.
Yes, and absolutely.
And it's going to be sad that we're going to end up in the Big 12. That's my thought. We're going to end up in the Big 12. I think the Big 10.
I'm good with it. You're not hurting my feelings.
No, I think it's a solid move, especially after what TCU did this last year. I think it's a solid move. It makes the Big 12 stronger.
Sure.
And I want it to happen now. I'm tired of waiting.
Yeah, I get that completely.
But what, June? Yeah, it was June 30th. SDSU has to say, hey.
June 30th. And I would tell everybody that last week Greg Flugar said that May 17th was kind of a witching hour for this latest little 6-week window where everybody had been talking about possibly Colorado or Arizona or University of Arizona moving. That was supposed to be whatever happened by May 17th from that ASU money perch.
Yep.
So, depending on, go ahead. What were we going to say, Chris?
I was going to say, I think it's funny with the 4 schools that are going or look to most going to the Big 12 is U of A is chosen over ASU. And a lot of Big 12 fans that I've seen are like, well, we don't need ASU. You can stay. So we're only going to take U of A.
That's a bunch of nonsense. That guy's
right,
an idiot, and block him immediately. He doesn't know
exactly.
what he's talking about.
And then Utah's like, well, we don't want Utah. We already have BYU. We already have
and
State.
It's nonsense too. Don't listen to that. That's completely ignorant comments, Chris.
And then you hear the Big 12 go, well, CU was already here. Why would we take him back? It's like all 4 of us, other than U of A, just like we're not wanted. Nobody likes us.
These are ignorant fans that honestly aren't they don't know the history of the Pac-12, the Big 12, or the teams we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, we're going to make new history. It's going to be awesome.
And I can't wait for it. So let's wrap up. Chris, thanks for joining me today. Why don't you go ahead and shout out again your tag and anything else you want to say to the people listening?
Hey, I'll just keep it quick and simple. You can find me on Twitter. I talk to practically everybody. You can see me at Chris24Catch. I'm right there on Twitter. Yeah, come at it. We can talk about whatever you want to talk about. Enjoy the rest of your day. Fear the fork. And thanks for the opportunity for letting me chat with you for a bit.
You bet. We'll do this again, Chris. We'll try to make it so that you're getting it. You let me know when you might want to say something if you have something on your mind. Otherwise, I'll shoot you a nod message and we'll get your stuff out there.
Well, definitely. The one thing I've never had a problem with is talking.
All right. That's fine. And I like to listen. So we're good.
Perfect.
For everybody else out there, please subscribe, hit the like button. These are things you have to say, Chris. Subscribe, hit the like button, leave any comments and suggestions in the comment section. I reply to all comments, and unless you're a real dickhead, and then I won't reply. And just look for me in the future. Hit that button that says the little ding-a-ling. You get notified for our next show. And I hope everybody has a great afternoon.
Definitely. Thank you, sir.
All right. Peace. See ya.